So we're live now, but we're not going to show out, but we will play some of your music while we're waiting. Okay, how's that? And then we'll formally roll the show out and introduce you. Okay?
All right.
Digging it.
Hey.
Digging it. Trying to pick up all the instruments.
That's Andre playing that right there. It's gonna sound good.
Yeah. I don't want to turn it off.
Let it go.
Man, that's fantastic. We're going to talk about this. Welcome, everybody. Let me formally roll the show out. Let me say the let me get the show started.
Yeah, sounds
Let's get
good.
this thing rolling here. So this one's going to be a little bit different, as they always are. This ought to be pretty cool. Let's see here. Let me go in here and make sure that we're good. We got 29 people in the house. Please post links. We will. We're going to introduce our brother here and his bandmates and collaborators to the Soulogy crowd. So I would imagine you could expect a few CD sales here in the next couple of days.
All right.
Because your music, your music. I mean, because hello, Ivania from Tasmania. Looking forward to getting you back on here. Tom Whitebear, our brother, is always working behind the scenes. Mary Cooper, who's the #1 attendee. I think she attends every episode live. Thank you, Mary. Janie Hodges, beautiful sister, Laura West, Jenny Smith. We are going to post links. Dave Carlson, Lisa Travels, and the beautiful Sasha Grace, who's also very, very good, accomplished artist and musician.
Yeah.
So
beautiful.
we have a dear brother here today that we're going to get to know on Soul Speaks 5D. This show is going to be a little bit different, but it's spontaneous, intuitive, creative, imaginative, and courageous, because we're going to put it out there and see what we can mix. Some old school Mississippi Delta blues expressions, spiritual music to me, and some Soulogy real-time intel. What the hell is going on right now? What's your experience like? That type of thing. So welcome to the show, Karl Schwarz. Thank you for coming and honor us with your presence and sharing space with us today.
Thank you, Todd. Yeah, it's nice to be here with you.
Very welcome. Very welcome. So I don't even know where to start, but we never do. And I would say that I get a lot of messages, obviously, and I know I got a message from you, or I may have sent you a message if I saw something that you did, and we just started talking. And I think you're in New York City, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
that's the #1 Soulogy market in the world. And
really?
Yeah, it has a special place in my heart. We kicked this thing off when I went to New York, which was in December of 2016, and with nothing, nothing but a dream, right?
Yeah.
And, So I don't know how it happened. And then you watched a show with what's her name, Marianne Savino?
Yeah,
I think and you said, "Hey, do you know anyone in New York?" And I was like, "Yeah, I just met a lady, and she's powerful." And so I know you talked to her, because I talked to her afterwards. We did another show, and I just said, "Hey, man, your music is really good, and would you want to come on?" And that's how we got here. Unless you can add something to it, because I can't remember.
Yeah. The first time, the introduction that I had with you was you were interviewing. It must have been it was almost exactly a year ago. You were interviewing Royce Gay, who's a prayer traditional man from South Dakota, just outside of Pine Ridge.
Yeah. That actually was a year ago, because it came up on my memories like 3 days ago.
Oh, wow.
It was huge. We did a show, and then I did a fundraiser. We did a fundraiser for them.
Yeah.
For those kids. We raised like $2,500.
Yeah, it was dynamite. That fundraiser put money into the travel expenses, food, and various other expenses for us to bring up a group of, it was 18 people from primarily Wounded Knee, South Dakota, which was the Ta'oyate Olawan drum. That drum was made in New Mexico, in Taos, New Mexico, by a Lakota man there. And then it was brought up and it was gifted to a young man named Joaquin, who is the drum keeper. And he's the, I guess he's the drum keeper, but he's also one of the singers of that traditional Lakota musical sound. Which is, prayerful singing. And that drum is about the unification of all people, and the healing of the youth and healing of all nations. So that ended up, that brought everybody up here. 18 folks stayed right here in this house with me in my little one bedroom. Right? Yeah. Second time that we've done this. And we went to United Nations 17th Annual Forum for Indigenous Peoples Discussions. So the drum sang for lots of different events there. We were at Pratt University. We were at an American Indian Community House event. And then, of course, all of the days that we spent at United Nations. And my job is kind of just, helping to make sure that everybody feels comfortable when they come, and try to facilitate any ways that I can to, to help that message and that prayer go forward.
Man, you're just a spiritual badass, dude. And and I didn't know that there was a Lakota connection, and I haven't talked about this much, but so growing up, I always had this Lakota connection, and Native American. When I was in elementary school, I used to read all the books about it, but particularly Lakota. And then whenever I woke up, the 3 spirit guides that presented themselves were all Lakota relatives, father and uncle and a brother, right?
Wow.
And actually, this is crazy, but this is how this is working in the Ascension. I think it was 2 nights ago. 2 nights ago, I had this encounter with Jupiter, which has never happened. But it started with these 3 spirit guides. So go outside. I went outside. It's like 1:30 in the morning, and stand in front of this field where I usually stand. And these 3 spirit guides came, because they've long since been embodied in me, I guess is how I'd put it.
Yeah.
So I don't really see them. They're part of me, but they actually presented themselves. And then I went through this whole transmission with Jupiter and Arcturus, and I don't know what else happened, but it was interesting that occurred. And I didn't know you had a Lakota connection. And then particularly too, what's always jumped out for me has been Pine Ridge. I thought I was going to end up there several times, but hasn't happened. I wouldn't doubt if it does happen. So do you have, I mean, you have obviously soul indigenous lineage. There's no doubt about it. I mean, that's thicker than blood. But I mean, do you have some type of past with the Lakota in your life in this lifetime?
Yeah. My parents both lived in Standing Rock for a good many years. They lived in southern Standing Rock in an area called Wakapala. And so there's the White Buffalo Calf woman. She brought the chanopa, the peace pipe, to the people some 17 generations ago, right?
Yeah.
And along with that, she brought prayers for all different situations, be it from preparing your food to greeting the sun in the morning, so on and so forth. And she brought 7 ceremonies with her. One of the 7 sacred ceremonies is the honka. Honka is to make relatives, and so just like you said, just like you were saying, thicker than blood or something to this effect. Honka relative is an adoption process, or not a process, but an adoption ceremony. And my father was honka'd to a couple different people in the community. Primarily, my Lekshi, or my uncle, was Dale Weasel. He passed away. Just about 2 years ago. Sad to lose him. Was a wonderful traditional man. He was a Lakota teacher, and so in that adoption, there comes a very strong sense of responsibility towards your Tioshpa, towards your family, and towards the Oyate, the whole community, all people, and a responsibility towards honoring what you are called to do and what you are asked to do, being humble and being as active as you can for the well-being of people and water, land, and air, right?
Yeah.
And
were you exposed a lot to like Lakota ritual and practices, spiritual practices, that type of thing?
Yeah, it's been I have. I've been in inipis, which are like sweat lodges, and a lot of prayers, a lot of horse rides and walks, rallies towards public activism and things like that. But a lot of it is very much prayerful, and a lot of it really comes out of the stories or the teachings. You would say, you would call it star knowledge, right?
Yeah.
Star knowledge is stories that go way back, long before even 17 generations or anything like that. It goes back to the Te Oyate, which is the people that were before us. Te Oyate, yeah. So if we were to consider, spiritual people of today, humble people, created, aware of Creator and aware of creation and the oneness, then we would call that Ikche Oyate. Ikche Rishasha would be a prayerful man. Or Ikche Wina is a prayerful woman, but people that are cognizant and try to live their lives in a good way that way. And so a lot of the learning that I've had as far as a spiritual way to conduct yourself has been through those old stories. You call it ohunkate. Ohunkate is the old stories that tell of all kinds of things, from relationships between the sun and the moon to the trickster spider, to accidental ceremonies being birthed, to the way Mother Earth and all creation works together. There's all kinds of what we call the great sacred unknown of the Wakantanka is the great unknown. Or originally by star knowledge, it would have been called the Wakantanka, which is the Federation Wakantanka, which is like the great federation of star people.
Wow. I didn't know that. Let's back up on that one.
Yeah.
So Wakantanka is the great unknown, right? That's I've heard that many times. We all have. And then you're saying that the second, or I guess this would be even a an older etymology, more of a root. That one is the the conglomeration of all star family.
Yeah,
all star knowledge, all star family, that type of thing.
Yeah.
So that's where I was actually going to go. This is really interesting. I had no idea. I thought we were going to be talking the Blues and Son House, and doing a little. Don't you mind people grinning in your face?
Don't you mind?
I love that one. Yeah, but
that's a good one.
The Lakota. I mean, you're talking about the oral. The oral word or energy or knowledge or whatever that's passed down through oral tradition, right? And now in terms of, that's where I was going to go with it, was in terms of the Lakota, the relationship with star family. How present is it today as opposed to 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 500 years ago? I mean, in your mind, how tight is that relationship between the Lakota people and the Star Nations?
Well, there's I suppose as a prefix to maybe kind of answer that would be that there has been, as we know very well, there's been a lot of hangups, and they're drastically larger than hangups with particularly Lakota people. Lakota people were never defeated by the United States military. And if we look into even things like Roman law, then that's saying something right away. So what happened is when they were asked, when indigenous peoples were asked to move onto the reservation and stay on the reservation, it was in exchange for four things. It was in exchange for education and housing and food and water and your basic necessities. When all this happened, they were told it was made illegal that they speak their language. It was made illegal that they practice their spirituality. So medicine people or healers or, all these different teachers and helpers of the community at that time, when you started to have these schools that they were taking the children from, separating children from parents and things of this nature, they were also, as soon as they would see anyone practicing medicine, they would put them into what is it? Prisons and asylums. Thank you. And the conditions were really awful. So a lot of the medicine workers or healers and these different people had to save their well-being, they had to go to church. They had to act as though that was pushed to the side and that they were now Christians, that they were now following the way that they were being pushed into. So what happened with a lot of that is both your language and your spirituality and those old stories. A lot of those old stories were shut down for some 3 generations. There was a period where you really couldn't speak much. You couldn't speak publicly, and you couldn't practice things like Inipi and things like that.
So is it making a comeback? I mean, is there?
Yeah, absolutely. Lakota language is a big storyteller in itself. Lakota words are a stacking of syllables that almost tell a story in their own. So
can you give us an example?
Yeah. Wo makashkashka is wo makashkashka. Wo would be like when you say wo Lakota, you're saying peaceful way or Lakota way. So wo is very much in a prayerful way, in a kind way. Wo ma or wo maka. Ma is large. It's an old Lakota word, and it means large or big. Maka is like unchimaka or omaka, being earth or grandmother earth, right? So as we start to see this word open up, you see, wo is like peaceful and large, ma is large, maka is earth, and shka is movement. Shka is like karma, Shka is like action, Shka is like a lot of, when you go into some of the old Lakota ways, some of the teachings is that if you don't move, if you don't travel, you die. There's old stories about Lakota people being sent into all the 4 directions, and they ultimately, some of them never came back, but some of them came all the way back around. Yeah. You know, so that word kind of breaks down in in all these smaller words. What it ultimately is saying is all life of Earth.
Yeah. Oh, to me, it's saying a lot. I'm glad you explained that, because now that you've explained that to me, I think it's a great way to present light language, because honestly, that's a great description of what I see light language as. I mean, it's just an observer in the work that I do, but there's like many words in one sound. Yeah. In one syllable. Yeah. One syllable. And then even at the end where you have the word repeated twice or the syllable twice, it's really 2 different things. You know, it's interesting what you just explained to us. I appreciate you doing that. Yeah. It's astounding. I mean, like a single word
can have any number of conjugations and can ultimately be a large section of the sentence that you're trying to say. You know, which is very much like you know, it's a very movable language. There's lots of dialects to Lakota. There's Lakota, Nakota, and Dakota. And then there's also, even within tribes, there's different ways of saying things. And even within families at this point, having been that 3-generational gap where Lakota wasn't really healthy and where it's still trying to grow. It's still trying to grow. And there's a lot of people, it's been made an official language in South Dakota just about a month ago. So it is making a comeback, and there are a lot of people that really are caring about the language and starting to be shown through their family maybe, and having more interest towards really understanding how Lakota works as a whole.
You know, and this is just my opinion, but it seems to me that that with the things that have happened, particularly since you know, what, 1890. With the what happened at the ghost dance. Well, yeah, that the Lakota, for some reason, they're, you know, I mean, there's the Hopi are there, and there's the Zunis, and there's others, but the Lakota seems to be a very you know, a very symbolic, energetic leader, you know, in this transition we call ascension, and I think. You know, I say that for a lot of reasons of the work I've done over the last 2-3 years when I've worked a little bit with Royce and some other people. But it seems like that there's a lot to be had there well, I don't know what I'm trying to say, a balance in justice, equality coming into full bloom. How are the Lakota people handling this transition we call ascension? In other words, do they see it in a way that maybe we could learn from in terms of White Buffalo Calf Woman's prophecies, in terms of the star knowledge that's been handed down? Is this a time they've been expecting?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. This is what has been a term that has been coming up quite a lot lately is the 7th generation. The 7th generation could correlate very much with rainbow children, with star children, right? This generation that is coming up, it was prophesied through the White Buffalo Calf Woman prophecy, as well as Crazy Horse makes mention of this as well. The big thing that I think is really important that I take from that system is that it's basically taught through these prophecies that it cannot be, this change of time cannot be handled through violence. This spiritual side cannot be handled through violence. And that is almost a make or break towards it. Even though we feel like, you know, we see so many things going on that look like we're headed towards a very static period in the United States. The big thing is peaceful way, which is Lakota. That is, it is to be peaceful, it is to be honorable, it is to be respecting and humble, and for all of us to honor all people, all colors, that prophecy. I mean, the Hopi prophecy, right? They're talking about the Hopi prophecy talks about that we're looking at a cauldron of ash coming. Isn't that right? That's what the Hopi prophecy says. I'm not
too familiar with it. I know the blue star and that, but for me, the Lakota is more of a physical thing.
Yeah.
We all know the story. I know there was the big a caravan that they were going to do to Montana. The trail ride or whatever it was last year. Yeah. There seems to be almost like okay, I'll give you a story so I can do it. So when I met the chief spirit guide, no pun intended, the lead spirit guide, the first one, okay, his name, and he told me that he was my father in a Lakota life, okay, and he was a chief running bear, right? And
he's right here.
Yeah, I don't.
He's right on the wall there. He's on the wall back here.
So, wow, that's trippy. I've never, I didn't know that. So, what happened was he came in and he was showing me the other side. It was early in my awakening, and he was showing me his own journey in the other side. So he showed me, and I didn't know at this time, he was, whatever that means, the spirit of my father or whatever, but he was showing me his life. And obviously there was the invasion and, the things that went along with that, the atrocities and such. And he showed me how he defended and all this. But what was more important is he showed me after he physically disincarnated, he did not leave the earth, and he was still walking the earth for, I want to say it was like 150 years when I ran into him, right? Or to that point, which hadn't been too long. So what had happened was he had to clear everything within himself. And that's what I was getting at, that he had to, even though he was on the short end of the stick and all that crap, that he was stuck to the earth, and many of his brothers and sisters were stuck to the earth, and that he had to make peace with all of the oppressors, all the victimizers, everything, every point of darkness. You know what I mean? And it really struck me. And then the reason I brought that up about the Lakota people is because I would think that their mindset is along the lines of what you're talking about. It can't be war. It's got to be peace. I would think that their mindset on an individual basis would have to reach that equilibrium because of the power that their lineage carries. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of what is taught is things, and I know some of this correlates to a lot of what I've heard you say in the past. Things like, and I'm going to paraphrase, somewhat use some of my own words, but like the ceremony is within us. We are sacred beings. We are eternal beings. So seeking the peace, seeking the communication with spirit, seeking goodness and relation through plants that we prepare to eat and everything else, that is a ceremonial way for us to be. I think that because we are eternal beings, and because, passing away, you're really going through a door. So I think that this change is only natural, and so I would say that then the systems by which we should live by today and last year is the same system by which is going to help us to grow and be thoughtful and able to hear when we're given guidance and when we're shown things through other people, and through ourselves and through spirit and, and through our quiet.
Yeah, and it really struck me whenever that happened, and that's why, again, I take it back to the Lakota people that are physically incarnated today, is because he showed me that he couldn't leave he was stuck, in between. He like say fourth dimension. He wasn't fifth, and he wasn't no longer incarnated. He could not leave because of what he held in his heart, and until he released it, that's when he gained his liberation and his freedom. And that was the big message he gave me. And that was at the very beginning of my trip. So I've always stayed close to it. And it's a big surprise to me talking to you about it today.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's like, wow. Because I just see them as being critical. I see that, that tribe, when I say tribe, I don't necessarily mean Native American or indigenous. I just mean tribe as in soul tribe. That soul tribe lineage, which has been put through so much. And we all know that the more BS and darkness we go through, the higher we fly. And it just seems like the timing is right. I would think they're going to play a pretty prominent role. I've always felt that way, but I don't know.
Yeah,
are you pretty involved with them?
Yeah, on a very regular basis. Constantly in contact with various people that are important to me. There's, and a lot of the time it's through things like Standing Rock Ocheti Shakoin, the No Dapple situation. There's also been other movements like MMIW, Murdered and Missing Indigenous Women. Other groups like All Tribes Sacred. That's John Trudell's daughter has a group that does outreach work towards MMIW, murdered and missing women, as well as the families affected, as well as murdered and missing men.
Was Trudell? Was he Lakota?
John Trudell was he's I want to say Anishinaabe and Dakota. I mean, to me, that's what were you? Oh, I was going to tell you too. When I was working a bit with Royce, and that's where you ran into me, and then it got really weird. And this is Soulogy, so I'm just going to talk out front. I don't care what anybody says. Yeah, sure.
This is for positive purposes, but it was interesting because I know they were infiltrated at Standing Rock, and it got really weird. In fact, I checked and we're not connected on Facebook anymore. Nothing was ever said to me, but there were some people, a couple of people that were raising a bunch of BS and causing some disharmony and pitting people like against each other. I didn't get involved in it. I had a lot of people write to me about it, but I would imagine that that's something that they've had to deal with the whole time, especially since as a culture or a subculture, in such an old and ancient one, carrying a lot of wisdom, carrying a lot of knowledge, that I'm sure that was a big part of why they were suppressed. Yeah. But do you see the Lakota tribe? Do you see them expanding? Are they? I mean, what's their state right now?
Well, I mean, right now in Pine Ridge, they're dealing with flooding. The snow melt off has turned into puddles, turned into mass amounts of snow melt off, just flooding everything. It's damaging a lot of homes and things of that nature. So that is actually a crisis emergency situation right now that the OST, the Oglala Sioux tribe, is seeking right now assistance through, I believe, FEMA and through the United States government, which is going to take multiple months for them to potentially get the service that they need. I don't
understand. I mean, I just don't understand how that still can be going on. I'm not talking about the natural disaster, but for something to take months, just doesn't jive. I'm from Houston, and shortly after I left Houston in 2016, they had that big hurricane. Yeah, and that hurricane was the place I lived was a 2-story townhouse, and my neighbor my neighbor left in a boat from the second-story window, and the water was still rising coming into the second floor when she left.
Wow.
So my point is that FEMA went in there and rebuilt houses in 2, 3, 4 weeks. I mean, literally overnight.
Wow.
So I'm not trying to like stir the pot here.
But they reacted quick in other scenarios.
But that just doesn't jive for them to be waiting months and months to get some relief there. It just doesn't make any sense.
I mean, that's the last word. I saw something just yesterday. The tribal president was talking about that, as well as a few other governmental officials. But I mean, you were originally saying, do I see movements going on within those nations towards healing, towards growth, towards teaching, and things of that nature, right?
Yeah.
I would say that there's a couple things going on as far as to try to hit on those things. One is, like, say for instance, the No Dapple situation that happened 2 and change years ago, that actually would have just ended 2 years ago. There was not only were we there to try and stop that pipeline, but there's a lot of things that tie into the pipelines. The first and most frightening for many people is the man camps that come with the pipelines. Those pipelines bring in large camps with trailers, and these workers come in and they start doing whatever preparatory work or digging or whatever stage in the process they are of that, making that pipeline. So the pipeline, every time, everywhere those man camps go, there are missing women. There is sex trafficking. There is murder. There is rape. And that is one of the most terrorizing aspects. For any time a reservation sees a pipeline coming into their territory, that is the first thing that is frightening. And that is why that is one of the reasons that a lot of indigenous nations stand up so powerfully against Line 5, Line 3, KXL, and Dakota Access Pipeline. But it goes,
Where does it stand now?
Dakota Access Pipeline.
Yeah.
Well, that pipeline has leaked at least 6 times. The last leak.
Did I read? I don't, because I haven't seen anything on it in a long time. Yeah. Did they stop it, or did they continue?
It was stopped, and immediately one of the first orders of business that Trump did when he was brought into office is he signed it right back, and they put it into order. It was already basically done. January 31st was their deadline. If they didn't have it done by then it wasn't going to happen. They didn't reach that deadline, but Trump did sign it off, and they finished that pipeline. It has since leaked at least 6 times, and the last leak was just north of Bismarck, and it was 176,000 gallons.
We don't typically get political here.
Yeah.
I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. I don't even buy in any of that bullshit. But I'm going to go on the record to say this again, okay? That if there is truly a leader out there, and I don't give a shit who it is, and I don't care what country it is, I don't care what their gender is or their sexual preference, all right?
Yeah.
But if there truly was a leader out there that really believed in divinity, they'd have the balls to stand up and do the right thing and say the right thing. Maybe not on every single issue, but the madness will go on as long as we allow it to go on. I'm not buying Q. I'm not buying Trump. I'm not buying anything.
Amen.
But my brothers and sisters, the 99.99%. That's why I'm asking about the Lakota. Yeah. I'm asking really as individuals, because of the power and the strength of their lineage and the bullshit that they've gone through. Those individuals and anyone like them, all of us are in that category in one sense or another. We have the ability to transform this entire world. One soul can do it. Yeah. Converting all of that pain, hatred, suffering, anger, all of that crap, and converting that within yourself to pure love. You know, I mean, this is the upside to the downside, and we've all been on the downside. So, you know, to hear these things, I mean, I got work to do. It pisses me off to hear that. You know, that pisses me off.
Yeah.
So much. Yeah. But anyway, so this has been a great episode. I'm absolutely like just enthralled about it.
Yeah, what a trip, huh?
So for those of you who are just coming in, I met this gentleman, this brother. He's an old blues artist, He does the old blues, the Piedmont blues, the acoustic blues. Plays a national steel guitar, and we start to talking at the top of the show, and he grew up Lakota, so we're talking Star Family and indigenous. Yep. So I mean, in terms of do you do rituals still? I mean, do you practice in your own?
Yeah. Whenever I'm able, I do go to sweat whenever I'm in the places that I'm able to do that. Some recent opportunities that I had, I was also kind of with a group, and so long as the entire group wasn't going, I wasn't really able to. So it's been about a year since I've been able to be in sweat. But a lot of what Star Knowledge teaches and that kind of spiritual system is really through listening, through prayer, and through outwardly trying to offer support and love to your community around you. You know, so a lot of what works for a lot of the way I operate is prayer all throughout the day, and processing through a lot of the stories that teach so much. A lot of these old stories, it might come off kind of like a children's story about the moon and the sun, and as you listen to it more carefully, you know, it could be just a short story, but as you start to listen more carefully, it can take you into explanation of time and moon and sun and masculine and feminine and relationships and how we're supposed to conduct each other, you know, and conduct ourselves. And that's really very much that's the system that would come along with maybe what they would call the red road. The red road is, is abstaining of alcohol and drugs and things of that nature, keeping your body clean, keeping your mind right, and things of that nature, staying truthful and staying honest and all those things, you know. And I would say that that's the Lakota way.
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole other thing too, man. There could be a strong case made that, you know, there was inside information. They knew exactly what the genetics were of the indigenous, and they went after them. Yeah, absolutely. What you're talking about with the stories, there's a guy, Soulogy, the group was started in March 2012, and there's a brother, a native brother named Chuck Chitwood, and he since like the first month we opened the doors, he's been in there, and he writes these stories, and I think he calls them the Red Road, but he writes these stories, and they're the stories that are passed down. And and I'm sure they're not like, you know, the intimate ones or the ones that are maybe kept in the circle of the tribe, but a lot of them have to do with animals, and they tell stories about them and how this happened and how that happened, and they're really good. They're really good.
Wonderful stories.
I enjoy reading them. Yeah, I really do.
Absolutely.
So how did a kid who grew up on the res, basically, how did you end up in New York playing an steel guitar?
Yeah, I didn't grow up on the res. When I was just getting out of high school, is when my parents were asked to go to Standing Rock. So I was moving up to Harlem, you know, and my parents were going out to Standing Rock.
So you're 18 when this happens.
Yeah.
So you grew up in New York.
Yeah. I mean, primarily. I mean, we lived throughout sort of central United States. I was born in Indiana, and lived many places until I was 12, and we moved to Haiti, and so we lived in Port-au-Prince in the Caribbean for a couple of years, and then when we had to come back from that, we stayed with family for a few months, and then we made our way to New York.
Were your parents, what kind of work did they do?
My father's a priest.
Okay, I was going to say, that sound like they're okay. And so you went to at 18, you went over there. Now, were you already playing the blues?
Yeah, blues has definitely been present. Blues has been present since I can remember. You know, I remember old records and cassettes and things of that nature at our house. So, you know, along with, you know, say Bob Dylan and Paul Simon, I was hearing Robert Johnson and Muddy Waters, you know. Yeah. So it's been ever present, you know. And in my younger years, I was more on a tip of like the Chicago blues kind of feel, but always kind of appreciating that strange outworldly sound that acoustic blues gives, you know, like Reverend Gary Davis or John Hurt or Robert Johnson, you know, that very haunting kind of feel.
Have you heard of a guy named Mighty Orc, O-R-Q?
No.
Yeah. So because I'm the same. The blues always did something to me, right? And so this was after I woke up. I was on the street, and I'd go dance. I'd go dance anywhere, mostly electronic hip hop. So I walk into this this blues bar in Houston, Texas, one night, and because it was near where I was going to sleep, and it's an institution called Shakespeare's, and I walked in, and there was a band, and they were taking a break, and this dude stayed on the stage, and he had a National Steel guitar, and I'm like, dude, is that a National Steel guitar? He's like, yeah. How did you know? And I said, because I know. I said, you playing his Son House? And he started playing. What's that one that the White Stripes do? John the Revelator.
Yeah,
playing John the Revelator, and oh my God, he was incredible. Then I did some research on him, and he tours, you know, other countries and stuff. He's pretty strong guy.
Excellent. But, Mighty Orc.
Mighty Orc, O-R-Q. Yeah, very good, very good guitarist. Does some of the best. Probably the best Stevie Ray covers I've ever heard.
Oh, wow, nice.
A lot of them. Being from Texas and hanging out in bars for many years, I've seen a lot of people that do his covers. But the other thing that jumps out at me right now too, and I just got to say these things because I know some weird way we activate people by our experience. So I went to New York. I never had any inkling at all that I would be going or even desire to go to New York City my whole life. And was offered to go there like 3 times in my corporate career. So I'm in Arkansas, up in the mountains. I just left my home for the last time with nothing. I'm staying with a sister there. I'm making music there, you know, and expanding that part of Soulogy, and I end up having to leave. I end up jumping on a bus, go to New York City. I got like $25 in my pocket when I get there, and I had probably 8 or 9. I don't understand past lives and all that. I don't know what they really mean, but I had 8 or 9 early on of these memories come back of these different lives. And one of them was a black guy. I was a black guy living in the Bronx, and I was a teacher, and I also played the guitar, and I did like also did like private music lessons or whatever, but I was a blues player. So I go to New York City, and I kind of, you know, bounced around a little bit, and then I landed at this family's house. They gave me a room, and it was in the Bronx. I was walking down the street like 2 in the morning one night, just checking the city out, and everything went into like a time warp, and I could swear I was this dude, you know, in 1930 something or whatever. I don't know. But there's something about that music that always gets me. I mean, you know, it just absolutely. I lived in Chicago a while. I would go down to Legends and some of the different places of it. But there's something about it that takes me back to literally the tribal beats, you know. Yeah, absolutely. Acoustic blues at this point is a very traditional form, and it also ties very much to a lot of like sacred songs, like you just referencing. Some like you were talking at the beginning that you like R.L. Burnside so much, right? I love R.L. Yeah, he's wonderful. He's wonderful. You're making the hair on the back of my neck stand up.
R.L. is dynamite.
I did you know, I do these. I haven't done them in a while, but I do these SOULSPEAKS because I'm a writer, so I'm a lyricist, so I poet or whatever. So I did this one. So I made these music videos a couple 2-3 years ago. I got they said, dude, make these things, turn them into something, right? So I did. And so what ended up happening, I wrote some and I put them to music, different beats. And then I heard this R.L. Burnside song. I forget the name of it. I can't think of it right now, but you would know it. And so I had written this piece called "The River of Life."
Yeah,
you know, and where you approach the river in mass, and you can go in the cool. You have to, each one has to step into the cool, dark, deep waters alone, and it was. And so I just turned it on one day, and started recording, and I recited it. Man, it's like one of my favorite soul speaks I ever did. Yeah, I love R.L. Burnside.
Yeah.
I shake my ass. I don't dance anymore. I used to do pretty good, but I turn on some R.L. Burnside when I'm alone here, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
And I'll dance my ass off. I love him.
I know you'll still shake it.
The other one I love too is Junior Kimbrough.
Yeah. Kimbrough is. I played at a spot on Friday night, and I saw a poster that he had just been there 2 nights before. And I was like, man, I miss Kimbrough.
Yeah, that's some real. I haven't heard any other than Buddy Guy. He's still around, but anyway, back to man. I really look forward to getting back to that side of the country or the world, and if I do, I'd love to get together with you.
Absolutely.
I love when I was traveling and just doing something. You know, like my friend that I met in Arkansas. She's native. She played the flute, right? And she also did vocals.
Yeah.
So I went up there. I was like, hey, come on over. And I found a native hip hop beat instrumental. I pushed the button. She got on the flute, and we did like 3 or 4 songs.
Wow, that sounds great. That sounds great.
I love like mixing different, different genres, just mixing them all together and creating an expanded vibration, you know?
Yeah. There's a lot of these songs, like what feels so powerful about RL and a hill country blues kind of sound is that he'll take it to just such a groove bass, and his lyrics will be so simple. It's just so straight up that he's really focusing everything of that song into one feeling, you know, and that feels prayerful, that feels spiritual, that feels like taking your energy and tightening it up and then just putting it out for that one direction that you intend.
I totally, my whole body is lit up right now. All I can think of is the line from Son House. When I grow up, I want to be a Baptist preacher, so I don't have to work.
So I don't have to work.
So now, and this is not it's up to you, but they want to know if you'll play something.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would be happy.
And I have a request too. I have a request. I would love to see that picture that you have of Chief Running Bear.
I'm on the laptop, so I'm gonna have to send you a photo of it because I can't pull the laptop over to you.
Yeah, I guess.
I don't know which where it's this one on. Where's my hand? It's this one on that side. It's probably not clear enough for you to get a good feel of them.
Take a picture and send it to me.
I will.
So let me see. Now you do. I'm trying to think of a good one here. How about? Okay, I got one for you. I'm thinking. I can't think of the name of it. But go ahead and get your guitar. Oh, you heard it. Is that a National steel guitar?
Yeah, it is. This is a 29 Triolean.
If I ever had a guitar again, I would get. I had one for a while, but I would get a National steel guitar.
They're wonderful instruments.
Yeah, these were actually made. I'm like a freak about this stuff, but these were actually made in order to amplify the sound. This was before electric, and some of the really great ones. Son House played the National steel guitar. So, what do you have in mind? What are you thinking you're going to play?
I mean, I do have one in mind. And I don't know why I haven't played it in a little while. But this was made famous by Richie Havens. It's a folk song. I do it kind of similar to Richie Havens, but it's maybe kicked up, maybe just my feeling of it. You got it.
Freedom.
Yeah.
Oh my God, this is gonna be good. I'm getting chills.
Let me find my capo here real fast. It's going.
Take your time, man. Take your time. That's a good one. And when he does Motherless Child, that's a good one.
Yeah.
You did a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, we'll do a little of that. We'll do a little of that. It takes a second to get the churning going sometimes, so we'll see how quick I can get this rhythm up.
Good things come to those who wait.
Can you hear the guitar pretty good? I imagine you probably.
Oh yeah, yeah, I can hear it.
I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Oh, Lord. From my home. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Oh, Lord. Like my brother, like my sister, like my mother, like my father, Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Or sometimes I feel like a motherless child. From my home. Freedom, 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 freedom. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Or sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Alone. From my home.
Yeah.
Hey.
That's excellent, man. Excellent. You know, the conclusion of that story with the dude that had the National Steel Guitar, and this place was small. This place was like one pool table, one U-shaped bar, and a couple of boards. I mean, it couldn't have been more than 15 tables in there. And so I went to the bar, and I ordered a whatever, and so he started playing, and he started jamming like you did. And I just said, you know, F it. So it wasn't even, probably the sun wasn't even down, man. And I'm getting down on this dance floor, and this dude's jamming to the steel guitar, man. And God, you know, just for a moment, you know, being homeless and all the things that were happening in my life at the time, everything disappears. Everything disappears in those moments, especially when you have when you have two collaborating or more. It becomes even more powerful, you know. But yeah, I mean, it's music and movement, like you were talking about, Lakota, the movement, music. I mean, it just it's, you know, it got me through it.
Blues music really feels like, and when you look at the time that blues music was finally really liberated, you know, we were talking about people having the rights to handle their spirituality and their language and their music and their oral traditions. Once you know, musicians were able to start traveling and say, hey, I don't want to stay here on this farm. I don't want to stay doing this labor, this mechanical work, whatever it was. You know, they were able to truly make a living going and playing music around, you know, their tri-state area. And that was really the ultimate feeling of liberation, you know. And then the flip side with the blues is that when you're feeling in the darkest and the hardest periods, that moment that you're playing that song or that you're experiencing that song, dancing to that song, is everything else goes away, you know. And that's really, isn't that what our stories and our songs are all about?
Isn't it? Yeah, I'm telling you, man. If you're ever, any of you out there, if you don't know a lot about the blues, you know, with YouTube, it makes it easy, man. But I mean, some days I'm just like feeling like, man, I don't want to do nothing. I'll just turn on YouTube. I'll find Howlin' Wolf, you know, at some West Coast festival outdoors with a white shirt on, tie, sweating like a dog, screaming like an animal.
Yes.
My God, you know, I mean, oh my God, this is like, it's crazy. You know, how much feeling goes into those songs.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Wonderful music. And there's just so many styles, so many, you know, at that time, that was the bulk form of entertainment. So you had in every single area all over the country, you had different styles of blues. And it being at the you know, inception of recording, really becoming something that could be received by the whole community. You know, there's a huge array of acoustic blues music from that era too. So you can really trace it back quite a bit. And
it's a huge part of our journey. It's a huge part of ascension, you know, of the universe. I mean, it really is, because, you know, I remember when I first came out and started doing videos, you know, back in, I don't know, 4 years ago. And one of the first ones I did was a 40-minute sermon on Sunday, Soulogy style. And it was about, and what I did was I took music and paralleled it with religion. And I just was explaining, I used blues, and I said, you know, where did it come from? It came from the tribal, you know, the indigenous, and then it went to the field hollers, and the spirituals got mixed in, and then you have, you know, you have this sound, and Muddy Waters goes to Checkerboard Lounge or whatever it's called, and plugs in, and so he can be heard over the noise. And then Jimi Hendrix hears it and said the first time I heard anything was Muddy Waters, and it scared me, you know. And these are the things that we don't realize how much that holds up. And even now, if you listen to, there's a guy named Will Shankerhanks or something. He's a DJ, and he takes Howlin' Wolf and mixes it with electronic, with
beats. Yeah.
Oh my God, some of the stuff. Sun House. If you listen to Nicholas Jar, great DJ out of New York. I'm
writing this down.
Nicholas Jar, fantastic. If any of y'all go to Nicholas Jar top 10 singles or top 5 or top 10, he's out of New York, young guy, and he does one with John the Revelator. Sun House. So there, I mean, what I was saying anyway in that sermon was that it evolves. In other words, the universe is all about, you can't divorce yourself from anything. So you can't say, hey, I'm a Catholic and you're this, or I'm this religion and you're that. And so music will take, you know, like, okay, look at Dylan. You know, Dylan wrote All Along the Watchtower using a harmonica. Hendrix hears it and puts a guitar in place of the harmonica, and look what happens. So you take something that's already there and you add to it, and it creates a wider vibration of light, you know, is how I see it, you know. So I'm all about, you know, adding frequencies. I'd love to get together with you sometime.
I would love it. I would love it.
I'll just dance. I ain't about to do any soul speaking, not with you.
Yeah, blues is a beautiful thing that, you know, music, and when it's really allowed to be open and freed up, like the man that you saw down in that Texas club, you really get the essence of just hollering. And when you get to be in a physical presence and you're feeling other people hollering, it's almost like you're getting to release in that same way, that really socially it's not really so accessible to just start hollering some loud words, you know, in a lot of time and places. So be it that you get to sing it, or be it that you get to sit there next to it while it happens, is a good feeling. It's a very liberating thing. Absolutely.
I'd love to get together with you again too. If you ever get out to Kauai, let me know.
Man, I would love to get out there. I'd love to come down and visit.
I'm gonna tell you, we've got a good situation over here, and even for visitors. So that goes for whoever. I mean, if you can get out here, it's very, very little cost to be here. I can tell you that.
Wow, that is something very cool.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you, and I appreciate the discussion on Lakota. And
yes.
Let's get together again, and you know, maybe do some music and whatever else comes up. But I'd love to, if you want. If you're interested, I'll hit you up, and we'll do something maybe another 3 or 4 weeks.
That sounds great. I would love that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I hope it was a good conversation, and all enjoyed what we got into.
I loved it. I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, I thought it was great.
I definitely want to collaborate with you.
Wonderful.
Love to collaborate.
I love that.
Things we're working on, and I think this is a good fit. So, but I appreciate it. I think that's it for today. I'm going to be painting the apartment, so that's a great way to end the day.
Awesome.
And,
awesome.
Thank you so much, brother, and best to you and yours.
Thank you, Todd.
If you see Royce, tell him I say hello.
I will. I'll send him some love. I hope everyone's having a wonderful evening. I hope you enjoy this motherless child.
Motherless Child, Richie Havens, love and peace, y'all.